Greetings. This is the second part in a series looking at how well physics is represented in AI-generated videos. Like last time, we're going to be evaluating each of the generated videos. The criteria we're going to look at include physical accuracy, shadow and lighting realism, interaction with the environment, temporal consistency, detail and texture fidelity, plausibility of outcome, contextual awareness, and perceptual realism. Each of these has some subheadings, and I'll be giving scores out of 5 for these. As in the last video, I've taken a fairly simple setup and given it to the various AI video generators to see what results they will come up with. Like last time, we're looking at Kling, Luma, Pika, Pixverse, and Runway Gen 3. The setup this time is fairly simple. There's a yellow nozzle on the left-hand side of the frame, out of which is shooting a stream of smoke. The AI video generators should be able to continue the scene and should show the smoke shooting from the left-hand side to the right-hand side of the screen. First up we have Kling. As far as physical accuracy is concerned, when we look at gravity and motion, well, gravity doesn't affect smoke very much, and as you can see, the smoke is generally heading from left to right, and I give that a 5 out of 5. For fluid dynamics, 4 out of 5. As you can see, over the course of time, the smoke tends to drift in an upwards direction, which is not quite correct. We can ignore shadows and lighting for this particular example, and we can also ignore interaction with the environment. Temporal consistency, frame-to-frame continuity, I give that a 5 out of 5. Motion blur and speed, I give it a 5. On the original frame on which this animation is based, there is of course no indication as to the speed that the smoke is being ejected. This feels a little bit slow to me, but I'm still going to give it a 5. Detail and texture fidelity, preservation of details, a 5 out of 5. There's no appreciable loss of detail. Plausibility of outcome. Realistic end states, I'm giving it a 4, mainly because the smoke tends to drift upwards. Physics-based predictability, I'm giving that a 5 as well. Contextual awareness we don't need to worry about. Perceptual realism, the visual coherence is extremely good, I'm giving that a 5. That gives us an average score of 4.75. Here we have Luma. For gravity and motion, I'm giving this a 5 as well. Fluid dynamics, again a 4. I feel that there's a slight inaccuracy towards the end in that the smoke tends to drift downwards, which is the opposite direction of what Kling was doing. Frame-to-frame continuity, I give it a 5. Motion blur and speed, a 5. Preservation of details, 5. Realistic end state. For this one I give it a 4. Again, like Kling, I feel that the smoke wouldn't be drifting in a downwards direction. Physics-based predictability, 5. And visual coherence, 5. That gives an average of 4.75, which is exactly the same as Kling. Next up to bat is Pika. And oh my goodness, what is happening here? It's just a slow zoom in on the stationary initial frame. I'm afraid this gets 0 right across the board, so the average score is 0. Next we have Pixverse. And this is perhaps the most psychedelic thing I've seen so far. The initial animation frame is being overlaid by magical yellow smoke which seems to be coming from nowhere. At least this AI has attempted to do something with the smoke. When it comes to physical accuracy, gravity and motion I'll give it 4. Fluid dynamics I'll give it 4. Frame-to-frame continuity is extremely good, I'll give that 5. Motion blur and speed, again, it's 5. Preservation of detail, 5, the smoke tends to act how you would expect. Plausibility of outcome. Realistic end states, I'll give this 0 because the starting state and the end state are nothing like each other. Physics-based predictability, again 0. And when it comes to visual coherence, I'll give it a 3. It hasn't followed the initial frame and has overlaid it with something of its own invention. That is at least consistent all the way to the end. That gives us an average score of 3.25 for Pixverse. Lastly, we have Runway Gen 3. Gravity and motion, I'm giving it a 4, mainly because it tends to eject the smoke in a slightly upwards direction. Fluid dynamics, I'm giving it a 4 as well. It hasn't really replicated the original frame, but on the whole it's not too bad. Frame-to-frame continuity is a 5. Like the other ones, apart from Pika, it is excellent. Motion blur and speed, a 5. Preservation of details is a 3 because it didn't preserve the details from the original frame. The smoke is a lot coarser. Realistic end states, I'm giving that a 4, mainly because it didn't replicate an end state based on the first frame. Physics-based predictability, a 5. Visual coherence, a 4, because it didn't replicate the type of smoke from the original frame. That gives Runway Gen 3 an average score of 4.25. Here are the final results. The highest scoring AIs were Kling and Luma, both of which got scores of 4.75. Runway Gen 3 averaged 4.25. Pixverse followed up with 3.25. And Pika came bottom of the list with a score of 0. That's because all it did was generate a static view which it zoomed in on slightly. This example was a lot simpler than the last one, and so it's good to see that the scores are a lot higher this time around. When it comes to fluid dynamics, you can expect these AIs to do reasonably well. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.